So next we're going to talk about the 5 attributes of vulnerability. Those were the 3 for leadership, for competence. And those again, competence, self-confidence, and motivation. And now we have the 5 for vulnerability, which are self-awareness, self-compassion, empathy, authenticity, and integrity. The first one is self-awareness. There's a story about a businessman, an executive at a very big company, very, very wealthy, very successful. He has everything in life that he wants. Beautiful house, beautiful car, tons of money in the bank. But he's struggling in his personal life. And so he decides to go visit a Zen master. And he goes to the Zen master and he says, I have everything in the world that I want. I have more money than I know what to do with. I have beautiful cars. I have houses all over the world. But I'm struggling in my personal life. And so the businessman is sharing his problems with the Zen master. And the Zen master tries to give him advice, but the businessman keeps talking over him, keeps interrupting him, keeps talking about his problems. And finally, the Zen master has had enough. He goes into the other room and he gets 2 cups and a tea kettle filled with tea. And he comes back to the table where the businessman is, and he puts 1 cup in front of the businessman, 1 cup in front of himself, and the Zen master pours himself a cup of tea, and then he pours a cup of tea for the businessman. And as he pours the cup of tea, the cup fills up, and the Zen master keeps pouring it, and the cup is overflowing, and he keeps pouring it and pouring it and pouring it, and the tea's getting all over the place. And the businessman looks at him and says, "What are you, crazy? Can't you see that the cup is full? It's getting all over the place." And the Zen master looks at him and says, "Similarly, you are too full of your own ideas and thoughts to be able to take in any of the wisdom that I'm trying to share with you." So self-awareness means understanding your strengths, your weaknesses, what motivates you, what engages you, what zaps your energy, but also understanding how other people perceive you as a leader. I always do this exercise with executives. I have them on a sheet of paper write down what they think their strengths and their weaknesses are. And I ask them a series of questions. What are your strengths, your weaknesses, what motivates you the most, what zaps your energy, what do you love doing at work, what do you hate doing at work? And I have them write all these things down on a sheet of paper. And then I have them pair up with somebody else at the company. And I have them answer those same questions about each other to see if how the executive views themselves is how other people also view that executive. And you always find that it's completely different. Oftentimes, what leaders view as their strengths, the people who work for that leader don't identify them as strengths. What a leader says they get most excited about, the person who works for that leader says those things might be the things that you don't get excited about. So self-awareness isn't just how you view and understand yourself, it's also making sure there's alignment between how you view yourself and how other people also view you. Because if you only have that awareness about yourself, perception is reality. So how other people perceive you is really what the reality is. Nancy McKinstry is the CEO of a company called Wolters Kluwer. And she told me, you cannot be authentic if you are not self-aware. How can you be transparent and open and talk about your goals, your aspirations, the things that you want to do, if you are not self-aware? So this is a crucial aspect when we think about the vulnerability category. Next is being self-compassionate. That's something that I struggle with a lot, that I'm trying to get better at all the time. And so that's my wife, Blake. And so self-compassion really means, how do you talk to yourself? What does your internal voice tell you? And so I play competitive chess, I play racquetball, I do a lot of different things, and whenever I make a mistake or if I lose a game, my inner voice is very negative. And I tell myself, you're an idiot, you're stupid, how could you do that? You shouldn't be doing this anymore, you're terrible. and I get this very negative internal dialogue. Or at least I used to. I'm working on this. And this also manifests sometimes when my wife and I, if we ever get into an argument about something silly, sometimes maybe I'll say something stupid. And my wife is very smart. She's very intuitive. She's very emotionally intelligent. And whenever I say something stupid, she'll look at me and say, I know that you're only saying that to me because you're not being very kind to yourself right now. And I think about that, and I'm like, oh yeah, you're right. So when you don't talk to yourself in a positive way, it also reflects in how you treat others. If you beat yourself up all the time in your head, you're going to beat up everybody else around you. So being self-compassionate is important. It's also important because when you lead with vulnerability at work, there will be times when your vulnerability will be used against you. It happens. It's just how it is. Just like there are lots of times where you might ask for a promotion, you'll be told no. You might ask for more money, you'll be told no. You might ask somebody out on a date, you'll be told no. Does that mean that you never do it again? No. It means you learn, you get better, and then you ask again. Similarly, if you will be vulnerable at work, there will be a certain time, I can promise you, where somebody will use it against you to try to hurt you. This happened to almost every single CEO that I've interviewed. And when you guys get copies of the books, you'll see that there are some crazy stories in there that are just unbelievable of some of the things that people have done to each other about using vulnerability against each other. So you have to be prepared for that at some point it will be used against you. Self-compassion is what allows you to be vulnerable again. Because if you don't have self-compassion and vulnerability doesn't go the right way, in your head you're going to say, oh, you're so stupid, you should never be vulnerable again, it didn't go well, why were you vulnerable, that's it, I'm never going to do it. But if you're self-compassionate, you're going to say, you know what, it's okay. You were vulnerable, it was used against you, what did you learn? What did you learn about yourself? What did you learn about the other person? What did you learn about the situation that you can apply in the future? So self-compassion is what allows you to be vulnerable again in the future when it gets used against you. Bill Rogers is the CEO of a company called Truist, another big financial institution. And he tries to practice self-compassion, and he says, I regularly carve out quiet time where I meditate and I can think to myself and give myself forgiveness for all of my imperfections and for the mistakes that I make, and I strive to learn from my mistakes. And he tries to do this on a regular basis, just to reflect about maybe something he did, something he said, and to basically say, it's okay, Bill, I forgive you. So he tries to practice that positive self-talk. Next is being empathetic, empathy. We oftentimes confuse sympathy and empathy together. And so a couple of years ago, I was giving a talk to two big financial institutions in New York. And all of you know the banks. I'm not going to say the names, but if you open up your wallet, you probably have those logos on your credit cards. And there's two different big ones that are out there, which I'm sure you can figure out. And I was giving a talk to both of those companies. And the first talk I gave, and then another talk 2 weeks later. So I give a talk at one company. And usually before I give a talk, I text my wife, and she says, have a good speech, remember to smile, have fun. You know, she says all those nice things to me. And so I'm talking to my wife, and next to me, I see one of the top executives at the company. He's sitting there, he's working on his laptop, checking his email or something like that. And I see one employee go over and try to talk to this executive. And the employee goes to the executive and says, hey, is it okay if I just talk to you for a minute? And the executive says, sure, what's up? And the employee says, I'm having a really hard time here. I've been at the company for a few months. I'm struggling. I don't have a great relationship with my leader. I don't think I fit on my team. I don't feel like I belong here. I'm having these issues of imposter syndrome, and I don't really know what to do, so I just wanted to come and share that with you to see if you have any advice. And this executive is doing his emails, and he stops for a minute, and he looks at this employee, and he says, you know what? I'm really sorry you're having a tough time, but don't worry. I know you'll be fine. Everything will be okay, and I wish you the best of luck. So he was sympathetic. He said, I'm sorry you feel that way. Don't worry, you'll be fine. A couple of weeks later, I'm giving a talk to their competitor. Same situation. I'm calling my wife, and she says, have fun, smile, remember to enjoy yourself. And same situation, I see an executive sitting not too far away from me, doing work. An employee goes over to them, and the employee says, I'm having a hard time. I'm struggling. I don't feel like I fit on my team. I don't really know what to do. But this executive did something different. This executive put away their computer, and this executive looked at this employee and said, have a seat. And the employee sat down, and the executive said, I know exactly how you feel. Because when I first started working at this company, I felt the same way. And here's what I did to solve that problem. And they talked for a few minutes, and the executive shared some of their insights, some of the strategies that they used. And then the executive said, my door is always open to you if you want to come talk to me. What happened at the first company was sympathy. I'm sorry you feel that way, you'll be fine. What happened at the second company was empathy. I know how you feel. That's what empathy is. I know how you feel. How do you put yourself in somebody else's shoes? How do you understand their perspective? It doesn't mean you have to go through the exact same thing that they went through, but it means you have to be able to identify the emotion and to identify when you felt that emotion in your own life. So if you have an employee who comes to you and they feel frustrated or disengaged, you don't have to have that same feeling at work, but just think about a time, when did you feel really frustrated? When did you feel really disengaged in something? And identify that emotion in the other person. That's what a big part of being empathetic means. Put yourself in somebody else's shoes and understand their perspective. Mark Hoplamazian is the president and CEO of Hyatt Hotels, and he said that one of the things that he used to learn empathy was his family and his kids, because he always thought that he was a very empathetic person. And then he did a bunch of tests, psychographic tests, and all the results that he got back said that he really struggles with empathy. And he didn't believe it. He thought he was the most empathetic leader that was out there. And so he went to his kids and his wife and he said, am I empathetic? I think I am, but I took all these tests and all these tests are telling me I'm not empathetic. And his wife and his kids said, actually, you really struggle with empathy. Even when you take us to school in the morning, you're always on your phone. You never pay attention to us. You don't think about how we're feeling when you're always on your phone. And he said that hearing that from his kids changed his life. And from that moment on, he always tried to understand the feelings and the emotions of those around him and how the actions that he takes are reflected in the people that he works with. Next, we have authenticity. A lot of people think authenticity and vulnerability is the same thing, but it's not. Authenticity is really about being a single version of yourself. Authenticity is about letting people know what you care about, what you stand for, what your values are. Now, if you look at somebody like Jack Welch and Steve Ballmer, would you say that they were vulnerable leaders? Probably not. But would you say they were authentic leaders? Probably yes. Jack Welch was very authentic. He had no problem screaming at you, cursing at you, throwing things at you. That was his personality. That was his style. He was very authentic in that way. But he wasn't vulnerable. Neither was Steve Ballmer. So authenticity and vulnerability are not the same thing. Authenticity is being that single version of yourself where people know your values and what you care about and what you stand for. But vulnerability is about exposing yourself to the potential of emotional harm. So being authentic is important. Do your employees know what you care about, what you stand for, what you believe in, what your values are? Jim Fitterling is the CEO of a company called Dow Chemical. And he said that one of the things that taught him how to be authentic is when he was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. And he thought that he was going to die. And he decided to come out to his company as gay. This was a secret that he kept. He didn't share this with anybody. And he realized after being diagnosed with cancer and realizing that he might die, that he should just be himself. And at first he was very worried. He said, if I tell my employees that I'm gay or my board members, they're going to look at me negatively. They're not going to think that I'm a good leader. But he decided to be authentic. And he found that when he was authentic, his company embraced him. They supported him. They believed in him. They actually viewed him as being even a better leader because he was able to be his authentic self. And oftentimes, this is what leaders do, right? We have one personality at work, and we have another personality at home. Be that single version of you. Next is integrity. Do you have integrity? And one of my favorite stories comes from Jeff Rader. He's the CEO of a company called Harry's. They make shaving equipment, shampoo, razors, things like that, home care stuff. And they were designing a new razor blade, a new shaver. And they had a meeting with their employees, with their executive team. And one of the executives said, we could make this shaver in chrome, and we can charge a lot more for it if we make it chrome. And Jeff thought about it, and he said, the chrome one looks exactly like the silver one. And even though we could charge more money for the chrome one, is that really something that we should be doing in the best interest of our customers? And it was a very, very simple decision, but it was one that showed that Jeff had integrity. Just because he could make more money for the business at the expense of tricking the customer, he didn't do it. And this is something that a lot of leaders struggle with all the time. There's usually all sorts of ways that you could try to make more money, try to, have a service charge, try to do this, try to do that. But does that reflect and does that make you a leader with integrity? So integrity is having a strong moral compass. Integrity is doing the right thing. Integrity is having that North Star that guides you in the strategic decisions that you make. And one of my favorite examples is from Penny Pennington. She's the CEO of a company called Edward Jones. And she said that a lot of leaders think that integrity is about telling the truth. And that's a part of it, but really what integrity is about is talking about the problems that you are willing to tackle, the decisions that you're willing to make, where you're looking to make investments, the things that you say no to. So it's not just about telling the truth, it's about the decisions and the actions that you also take. So these are the 8 attributes of vulnerable leaders. If you want to lead with vulnerability, these are the 8 things that I encourage you to practice. Competence, self-confidence, motivation, integrity, authenticity, empathy, self-compassion, and self-awareness. So where do you start? You start by building what I call the vulnerability mountain. The cover of the book that you'll see is somebody getting ready to go on this journey to climb a mountain. And the reason for that is because when you climb a mountain, it's hard. At the very beginning, it's easy, but the higher up the mountain you go, the harder it becomes. But the higher up the mountain you go, the more clarity you get, the more visibility you have, the more people you meet on your journey, the farther out you can see. But you're probably going to make a couple mistakes. You might get hurt. You might fall down. You might have to go back down to go back up. So building your vulnerability mountain means, what is something that you could do today? What is something small that you can do today to lead with vulnerability? And what's something that's really scary and really hard for you to do? The easy thing is what's at the base of the mountain. The hard thing is what's at the peak of the mountain. And so once you identify what's at the base and what's at the peak, you now know the path that you need to take. So identify what is something that you can start doing today or tomorrow. And identify what's something that is going to take you weeks or months or years to be able to figure out how to do. And then slowly, each day, you take those steps to climb that mountain.